Folks, if you don't know about Measure 114, it's one of the most strictest gun laws that our nation has ever seen. And of course, it's being bred here in the state of Oregon. Well, yesterday, an Oregon Court of Appeals ruled that measure constitutional. And I also interviewed the lead counsel that is leading the charge in this fight against the state. His name's Tony Aiello. We talked to him. I'm going to bring that to you next. We're going to break down everything you need to know. Don't freak out just yet. Let's go. How's it going, everybody? David Medina here. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube. If you're on social media, follow me at David Medina PDX. That's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X. Really appreciate you being with me. I want to get right to it because we just did an interview with the lead counsel, Tony Aiello. He's with Tyler Smith and Associates out of Canby, Oregon, who is leading the fight against the state in this egregious Measure 114 battle. Now, if you don't know what Measure 114 is it was voted in by the citizens of Oregon by a very narrow margin, and it's basically one of the strictest gun laws, the most egregious infringement upon our Second Amendment rights that this country, not just the state of Oregon, but this country has ever seen. And yesterday, the Oregon Court of Appeals, so before that, a Harney County judge last year, I think it was last year, the year before, basically ruled it unconstitutional, stopping the measure in its tracks, while the Oregon Court of Appeals, which is the next step in this process, yesterday just ruled it constitutional. And I read their judgment. I've talked to all the experts, and none of it makes sense. They're not using any precedent on this. It's insane. Basically making all millions of Oregonians into criminals who own guns. You will no longer, under this measure, you will no longer be able to possess magazines over 10 rounds. You have to get a criminal background check and a gun safety course just to apply for a permit for a gun. Folks, this is the most egregious thing. This is the most egregious gun laws our nation has ever seen. And they're testing it out here in Oregon. They're chipping away at our rights. And I talked to the lead counsel, Tony Aiello. He's leading this whole fight. He was the lead counsel in this case that was arguing this on our behalf, the people's behalf. And he was fighting this. And so we talked to him. We interviewed him. And we'll cut right to this interview right now. Check this out. Okay, guys, so we're here with Tony Aiello. He is the lead counsel that is fighting against this egregious Measure 114 here in Oregon. It's one of the most radical gun laws I think our state has ever seen. And Tony, thank you so much for being with us, brother. And we appreciate what you're doing. Now, you're with the Tyler Smith and Associates law firm, right?
Yes, yeah, Tyler Smith and Associates in Canby, Oregon. I live in Salem, Oregon, and we've been in the Measure 114 fight since the beginning. So yeah. November of 22.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing, man. And we just wanted to clear up some things because we have a lot of people freaking out right now. There's some buzzwords going around that this measure is going to turn millions of Oregonian law-abiding gun owners here in Oregon into basically criminals. And there's just, I know some points on these Measure 114 is it requires permits issued by local law enforcement to buy a firearm. So in order to apply for a firearm, you have to go through gun safety and get a background check. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Right now, I'm not aware of any sheriff or police chief who has their program deployed and ready to go. Mm-hmm. So if Measure 114 were to go into effect today, there's not an Oregonian in the state who could buy a firearm.
And the thing is if the magazine, if you have over 10 rounds, it's going to be illegal. You can't own a gun that has over 10 rounds in the magazine, correct?
Yeah, except for I would be a little bit careful with that. The way it's worded is kind of funky. We had a lot of testimony on that at trial, but the Court of Appeals declined to address this issue. I'm not a criminal defense attorney, so I would encourage everybody to consult one if you're concerned. Yeah. But it includes magazines that can be, quote, readily capable of holding more than 10 rounds. So all of your listeners know about magazine extensions. They know about how to drill holes. Not that I would ever encourage somebody to do that, but there's ways around it. And so that'll be a question that, according to the Court of Appeals, will be worked out on a criminal defendant by criminal defendant basis.
Now, does it matter? I mean, can't you just have multiple magazines of 10 round magazines and you'll be fine, right? So it just kind of makes no sense, right?
Yeah, that's that's the illogic of this. You know, their purported concern is mass shootings, but everybody needs to always remember that the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. So this is just one chewing away one step at a time at our right to bear arms.
Yeah.
And so they want you to have to reload, which anybody who does self-defense training knows that reloading is a vulnerable and dangerous position to be in under fire.
Yeah, there was actually an incident, producer John, there was an incident that you looked up. What was that, in California, that had a guy that, what happened there?
So there was a guy named Vince Ritchie. He was defending his home in LA from 2 armed robbers. He was coming home from the gym, and they came up from behind as he was opening his front door, and he luckily had hot tea in his hand. He threw it on them, and he had enough time to draw his firearm from his waistband as they had one in his chest, and he started firing on them because in his mind, to his testimony, he said, "I'm dead either way, so I might as well try to defend my family."
Yeah.
His newborn was in there with his wife, and so he only had 10 rounds in his magazine because of being in California, and he said that he remembered counting out how many he had, and he realized he only had 2 left, and they were still in his yard, and he had to reload underneath his car, and it's just it's absurd.
So it's just not, none of this makes sense. None of what Measure 114, any of this makes sense to me. It's basically turning your gun rights into a privilege. Our right to bear arms is a right. It is a right cemented by the U.S. Constitution. So that's my next question, Tony, is how does this not, we always hear from these same people that no one is above the law, yet they're trying to pass this measure that they say is voter supported, that supersedes the U.S. Constitution. How are they getting away with this?
Yeah, so just quick point of clarification. My lawsuit is actually under the Oregon State Constitution,
okay.
Which has been neglected by lawyers, mainly because of who our court of last resort is. But it's under Article 1, Section 27 of the Oregon State Constitution, which I believe the trial judge agreed is actually even clearer than the Second Amendment, because it was written, number of years later. There's no talk about militias. There's no talk about well-regulated. It's the people have the right to bear arms. And somehow that's not clear to the folks at the Court of Appeals. The way they did it, in my opinion, was basically ignoring the law. I've never seen a Court of Appeals opinion this undercited. And what I mean by that is they didn't rely on a lot of precedent. Our briefs were 5,000 words longer than they should have been on both sides. We got an extension on that because there's case law that we really needed to drill into, and they just ignored 40-something years of precedent and went with the most recent case, which, not to get too wonky here, but we have a list of laws that have been historically justified. Notwithstanding the right to bear arms, stuff like public carry or concealed carry, and broadly that's manner of use, manner of possession. You can't shoot a firearm in a town without provocation, and they ignored that, and they went with the word that the Supreme Court used to summarize it all, which is reasonability. And the big danger there is, if our rights are subject to a reasonability analysis, do I think it's reasonable to stop people from marching down Main Street, wearing KKK uniforms? Yeah, maybe people might agree that that's a reasonable restriction on the right to free speech, but it's a right, and rights aren't subject to a reasonability analysis. So that's what they did, is they went, it's reasonable.
Yeah, and that was my next question. I was going to say, what precedent are these judges, are these people, these defendants, and the attorneys on the other side? What precedents are they going off of? What are they basing off of? I read a little bit of their judgment yesterday, and I didn't really see anything in there that was enough to go to overturn what the Oregon Constitution says, which it says in there that we have the right to bear arms, and it says for the reason. I'm going to let you share that reason. It's not to go hunting. It's not for sport. It's for A purpose.
Defense of self, and just like the Second Amendment, but stated even more clearly, defense of the state. Now, that's the one bright point on the court's analysis yesterday, is they declined to adopt what the state wanted, which is to say you're only able to use those firearms and firearms with the capability that existed to the letter in 1859.
Yeah.
So our redneck, backwood, backwater pioneer ancestors here in Oregon who were fighting wars with Native American tribes and, you know, defending their homes from the crazy wildlife we have in Oregon sometimes, and their livestock, etc. Supposedly only intended us to defend ourselves and our state with antique firearms, which makes no sense. I mean, even the Court of Appeals looked past that, but that's what the radicals in Salem wanted to adopt. They said, single shot muskets, that's what you have a right to, and that's, you know, all but verbatim from opposing counsel. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point earlier about just this gradual chipping away at our rights. It's the playbook of if they came with a law today that said, hey, we're gonna ban all guns. You can't buy guns, you can't use guns. I mean, kind of what they've done in other countries. I mean, they have very strict gun laws in the UK even, and what they're doing, how they get to that point, because that's the end goal. Do you agree that's the end goal, is to ban all guns?
100%.
The end goal. And so what do you do for that? With Americans that are more stubborn, you have to chip away. And so this is part of that chipping away. And this is a big chip, in my opinion. I mean, is this the same measure that made it illegal to carry firearms in school zones and public, or is that a different one I'm thinking of?
That's a different law. That one's different. Here we're dealing with really three issues. We've touched on the permit to purchase. You have to go through a background check and training for the privilege of going through a background check, for the privilege of exercising what should be a fundamental right. There's the magazine restriction. And then there's what they call closing the Charleston loophole, what I call the completed background check requirement, because it requires a completed background check. And Charleston is a buzzword. There's been a sum total of one incidents of violence where someone obtained a firearm illegally because of the not happening to go through a completed background check and committed an act of violence. It happened in 2015. It was terrible. Nobody likes it.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is in Oregon, we've got the background queue going up. At one point, it was almost up to 40,000. I've got a funny last name everybody's got to ask me to pronounce. There's not a lot of Italians. I've never been handcuffed, and yet I routinely get delayed 30 days or more, and I have my concealed handgun license.
Shouldn't be this way, man. And I think so. So yesterday's ruling by the radical Court of Appeal judges, basically this thing doesn't go into effect yet, where there's still some more hoops it has to jump through. Can you explain what the next steps are and how close we are to this measure actually going into effect?
Yeah, so that's the number one bit of misinformation going around right now. I don't know where it started, but that Measure 114 is not in effect. We have a judgment from the trial court judge, and that judgment is still in effect. What happens next is we have 35 days from yesterday to file a petition for review in the Oregon State Supreme Court. They do not have to take our case. I think they will. I've got a bunch of reasons why I think they will. But until they reach their decision on whether they're going to hear the case or not, everything stays the same. That can take months.
Yeah, well, I like to be optimistic, but I mean, the Oregon Supreme Court, I mean, it's kind of a toss up there, but I mean, I don't see how they don't take this, because there's just been nothing like it here in Oregon. But you were about to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then once they actually decide to take the case or not, then if they take the case, well, then we set a briefing schedule, oral argument. That would probably happen within, 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we wait for their decision, which can regularly take quite a long time. If they decline to take the case, then because we're going to be going back to Harney County to have the judge have to enter a judgment against us.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about attorney's fees. There's not a lot to talk about there with the state, but that'll be the final step. But my case is not the only case. There's also a Second Amendment case filed by Oregon Firearms Federation and some other parties. Mm-hmm. That case is currently stuck in the Ninth Circuit. So they lost at trial. We won at trial. And that case is stuck behind Duncan v. Bonta in the Ninth Circuit. And for context, it's been almost 2 years that the Ninth Circuit has been sitting on Duncan v. Bonta trying to decide who's going to hear the case. Okay. So whether the same panel can hear the case or not. 2 years. They have the friendliest court of last resort. Like you said, we know the Oregon Supreme Court is a tough court to go into. I'm still optimistic about our odds in there. I mean, the case law is so good. They really have to twist themselves in knots to rule against us, and that's why, portions of the opinion don't make sense. But that federal case is still going, and there's a number of federal cases dealing with magazine restrictions, and so we expect at some point the U.S. Supreme Court's going to hear one of those cases and get rid of at least that portion of ballot measure 114.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate your efforts. We appreciate Kevin Starrett over there at Oregon Firearms Federation, everybody else fighting against this. Just unbelievable. I can't even believe we're here fighting this. I mean, if you were to tell us 10 to 20 years ago here, even in Oregon, that we'd be fighting something like this along with other crazy stuff that we're fighting, you would have thought we were crazy, but here we are. And that's what happens when people don't get involved in the process, guys. So, Tony, why don't you let people know how they can support you? We're going to have your QR code probably up the whole video for this whole video that we're doing. But tell people how they can support you and about your cause here.
Yeah, so we've had a give, send, go going this entire appellate process. We don't have anybody to date who has said, yes, we're going to fund your appeal 100%. So we've been relying on individual donations and donations from organizations like OFF, Firearms Policy Coalition, Second Amendment Foundation, and some others. But what I launched this morning was what I'm calling the Ballot Measure 114 2025 Challenge. I'm asking everybody to donate at least $20 or more if you support this fight. Direct message or text message the link to 25 people you think will also support the fight, and that gets rid of the algorithm right there. Nobody can quiet it down. The social media quiets down fundraisers sometimes. And then the last thing is just to post the link on all your social medias and say, hey, I did the Ballot Measure 114 2025 challenge. That gets it out to more people. If everybody who follows my own Facebook page did that, I think this appeal gets funded, overnight. I know that's a lofty goal, but I'm hoping if we get the word out to enough people.
What is the goal?
I mean,
what's the end goal? What's the total?
Yeah, so we were at just under 25,000 before the opinion dropped yesterday. We're hoping to get to our $100,000 goal. That should cover everything through the Supreme Court, no doubt. But we're going to take what we can get because we want to stay in this fight. This is why I became a lawyer. This is why I went to law school. It's been a huge blessing and an honor to get to do it, and I don't want to stop.
That's awesome, man. Well, you shouldn't stop growing that beard either, man. That beard, I'm trying to get to that level. Yeah, man. I'm trying to get that, man, just Oregonian beard right there.
Yes.
Hey, man, Tony Aiello, we appreciate you, man. Keep up the good work. And we're going to donate as soon as we jump off here. We are going to donate here at Medina Media. We're going to donate to this cause first. We hope everybody follows suit. But go support this, guys. This is the fight this is the hill that we need to die on. This is the fight. This is one of those fights that we need to pay attention to and that we need to be all in on. So, Tony Aiello, thank you, man. I appreciate you. We'll make sure to put all your contact in the description. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Again, if you want to support Tony Aiello, go to that QR code. We'll have it right here on the screen. You can just snap it with your phone. And then also we will put all of his information and how you can support him. His goal is 25,000. You'll put, this is the fight that we need to fight, guys. We'll put it all in the description here on YouTube and possibly X as well. But maybe we'll even put it up on the website as well. But go support this. This is the fight that we need to fight, guys. This is so egregious because if this goes through, which it still has a lot of hoops to go through. This is not, like Tony said, this is not taking effect right now. It still has more hoops to go through. They have 35 days to respond. Eventually, it's going to go to the Oregon Supreme Court. But if this ever does go through, guys, it is something that they just want to ban all guns one day. And the FBI already even said that they couldn't conduct criminal background checks, that they won't do it. So in essence, this kind of does ban guns because, and the judges were like, that's not our problem. So it's just, guys, they're trying to take away our rights one little chip at a time. We have to fight now. So make sure you go support that cause, support what Tony's doing, and support all the other great gun rights individuals and groups that are fighting this alongside Tony. Oregon Firearms Federation with Kevin Starrett, go to their website. They always have good information on stuff. Oregon Gun Lobby here in Oregon, the NRA, a lot, Oregon or Gun Owners of America, a lot of different groups that are fighting this. Go make sure you go support them all, because our right to bear arms is not to go hunting or for sport. It's to defend ourselves against tyranny and against a tyrannical government, and we're pretty much there. So don't let them do this, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media at Dave Medina PDX, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We will see you on the next one. If you like this, share this video. Like this video. If you want to support what I'm doing, go to thedavidmedina.com, thedavidmedina.com, and you can go donate to what we're doing here. So we hope to just be a bastion of truth and help people out like Tony and good groups out like him and then the others that are fighting this. And so we're just trying to amplify what we're doing. That's what we're about. Thank you for being with me. We'll see you on the next one.